Hey dads, welcome back to the Legacy Father podcast. I am Brandon, the author of the Anxious Father Workbook and founder of the Legacy Father community. And in this podcast, we talk about real struggles that dads face and provide practical tools to help you grow into the father, husband, and man you're meant to be. Today we're diving into something that affects many of us, workplace anxiety. Whether it's a toxic boss, unrealistic deadlines, financial pressure, or if you're like me, it's the constant fear of messing up. And so work can be a huge trigger for anxiety. And let's be real, when work stress spills over into our home lives, our families feel it too. In this episode, we'll talk about how to recognize workplace anxiety, and more specifically, how to tell the difference between temporary stress and chronic anxiety. We'll also talk about strategies to stay calm and focused on the job, and some clear signs it may be time to quit. After all of that, we'll also cover an action plan for starting your job search if that's the best move for you. Before we jump in, I want to read a quick story about a guy named Jordan. It's 2:48 a.m. Jordan wiped the sweat off his forehead and glanced at the clock. Another brutal night shift in the warehouse. The air was thick with dust, and the hum of conveyor belts filled the silence. His scanner beeped relentlessly as he tried to keep up with the quota. "You're falling behind, Jordan," barked his supervisor from across the aisle. Jordan's jaw tightened. He had been working faster than anyone on the line, but the manager always found a reason to call him out. And it wasn't about his speed, it seemed personal. The manager had been writing him for weeks. "Do you even care about this job?" his manager asked last week, smirking as he walked away. Jordan clenched the faulty barcode scanner in his hands. "Broken. Just like me," he thought bitterly. The scanner jammed at least 5 times a shift, and every time the manager would roll his eyes and make some comment about how a real worker figures it out. After his shift, Jordan sat in his truck, gripping the steering wheel. His chest felt tight and heavy. His stomach churned. He stared at his reflection in the rearview mirror, his eyes red from exhaustion, and his fingers still shaking from frustration. Then he did something he never did before. He asked himself a question. Am I stressed? Or do I need to walk away? Jordan thought his problem was just stress and that he needed to toughen up or something like that. But the truth got even clearer now. No amount of deep breathing or mindfulness could fix a toxic boss and a broken system. If you're like Jordan, sitting in your car after work, after a long shift, and you start questioning everything, maybe it's time to get real about your next step. My question to you, men, is do you need to manage your work stress better, which is possible for a lot of us, or do you need to find a healthier workplace? And that's what we're talking about today. So stay with me, because by the end of this episode, you'll know exactly what you need to do. I believe that workplace anxiety can creep up on us in different ways. For me, it was constant overthinking. Like right before I sent out an email, I'm sitting there overanalyzing every possible situation and reaction that someone might have. Maybe for others, it's a physical reaction, like a tight chest, the racing heart, or a sick feeling in your stomach before the day even starts. Some other ways that your anxiety might be coming out sideways is getting irritated at your coworkers or your clients, or if you're like me, getting irritated with your family at the end of a stressful day. You also might be stuck at your job, but you're too overwhelmed to make a change, right? With family life, with your marriage, it's like I didn't have time to apply to other jobs and go interview. Maybe you struggle to focus, so you're falling behind. Your mind is just like going crazy in the background, and it's like a struggle to just read an email. And the last one, you might even spend hours worrying about work on the weekends or at nights after you've clocked out. Okay, so that's how anxiety might come out sideways, but here are some common triggers. Which one speaks to you? Tight deadlines and high expectations. Maybe this is manager-induced, maybe it's self-induced. Another one would be lack of control. So micromanaged or feeling powerless, like maybe there's a project manager that decides everything and you just have to implement whatever they ask. Maybe it's a toxic work environment, like a boss who belittles you, like in the story about Jordan, or maybe gossipy coworkers. And maybe if you're like me, a toxic work environment meant working for a company that did not align with your values, like maybe during COVID. Another trigger might be your fear of failure. So worrying that any mistake could cost you your job. So like the overthinking about the email. And lastly, financial pressure. So the golden handcuffs, or feeling trapped because of the paycheck, yet you hate the job. So the first step of getting out of this anxiety or get out of the situation is going to be awareness. Identifying how does it come out sideways and what are your triggers? This will help us recognize a pattern, and then we can actually take action on it. Check out episode 1 of the anxiety series to help your awareness. The link will be in the description. Also, there's a card here. Here's some good news, or bad news depending on who you are, but not all workplace pressure is anxiety. Sometimes it's just stress, which is a normal response to challenges. So here's a simple way to remember the difference called the S.T.A.Y method. S.T.A.Y. S. This stands for short-term or long-term. So stress comes and goes, right? We all have the deadlines. We all have the manager for 3 or 4 months that sucks, whatever. However, anxiety lingers even when things are calm. Even when the project is done and the email has been sent, that's one way we can identify anxiety over stress. T. Triggers. Stress is triggered by specific tasks like a deadline, while anxiety doesn't really have a clear cause. A. Actionable. Stress can often be solved by time management or prioritization, which we'll talk about in a couple of minutes, but anxiety typically needs deeper emotional work. And why? Your body's response. So stress makes you feel like rushed and it's fleeting, but anxiety can make you feel paralyzed, nauseous, or anxiety can make you feel paralyzed, detached from reality. So if you're constantly on edge, you're exhausted, you hate work, you come home and you treat your family not very well, then maybe you're dealing with workplace anxiety, not just stress. Once you've recognized that you're experiencing workplace anxiety versus stress, here are 5 strategies you can do to stay calm and focused. I've talked about this one in some previous episodes, but it's called the STOP method, S-T-O-P. Stop what you're doing, take a few breaths, observe, and proceed. So check out some previous episodes, which cards will be here on the video, and you can do things like grounding or some box breathing. You can set micro goals. This is number 2. If a big task feels overwhelming, just break it down. An example of this would be stressing over a huge report. Instead, focus on writing your plan first, prioritizing, and then just start on the first section. A third way to stay calm at work is to create a pre-workout ritual. I've talked about this also in previous episodes. What this means is just developing a morning routine, whether this is coffee with your wife or time with the kids, stretching, breathing, journaling, whatever it is that you like to do to start your day. Make sure that you set aside time to do that. Number 4, manage workload using task prioritization. We talked this a little bit with number 2, but what I want you to focus on here is ruthlessly prioritize and learning to say no. Basically, draw a line. After you've made your prioritization, what is actually going to be accomplished in the day given your set of time? One tool that you can use, and I'll put it up here on screen, is called the Eisenhower matrix. So this is a little 4-quadrant matrix. It just has 2 categories, which are urgency and importance. And so each box has a different meaning. So the first one is urgent and important. So this is like, you need to do this today and right now. You have not urgent, but important. So schedule this. This might be needing to work on a project that's due Friday, but it's Monday. The third quadrant is urgent, but not important. So this is something maybe you can delegate, or maybe something you can do when you have some downtime after the project's done on Friday. And the last one is going to be not urgent, not important. This is where you can kind of quote unquote say no, that this is where you drop it. One cool thing about this quadrant as well is once you've identified the urgent and important, you can start on that and begin your day with one win. The last thing you can do to help calm at work is to just take little breaks. Sometimes I really get into stuff. It'll be like 2 or 3 hours and I look at my clock or whatever, my playlist stops and I'm like, wow, I've been sitting here for hours. I cannot believe this. My legs are stiff. My ass cheeks hurt, like whatever. I need to get up and go use the restroom. So just getting up, taking a quick walk or stretch, like whatever that is for you. I used to do squats, push-ups, anything like that. I used to even have a pull-up bar to work from home. Anything that will help you reset your nervous system. If working remotely, change environments, or go talk to a friend, grab some water, whatever this looks like for you. So we talked about path A, which is going to be staying at your job and managing some stress, and we talked about ways to do that. Now we're going to shift over into leaving a toxic job. Before that though, here are a couple of signs that you should just stay in it and manage your anxiety in case it wasn't clear yet. But here's number 1, you like the work, but your anxiety is situational. So again, you have like this big project stressing you out, maybe a big client order, whatever it is. But overall, the job's fulfilling. And this is maybe it's the end of the year, it's seasonal, something like that. Another sign that you should stay is that your anxiety is caused by yourself. So an example of this would be like perfectionism. Maybe you're putting undue pressure on yourself. The third one is you haven't set boundaries yet. Have that hard conversation with your manager and set and enforce boundaries. Okay, you've come all this way and it's like, you know what? I've got to get out of this place. Well, here are some signs to solidify that decision. It's toxic. Again, you have some emotionally abusive manager, or maybe there's unethical practices, or maybe it's gossipy. Number 2, there's no work-life balance. So if you are working on the weekends, you're working on the evenings, and your family is starting to suffer, then it's time to move on. Yeah, there's some jobs. I'm in my day job, I'm a software engineer, and sometimes I do work nights and sometimes I do work weekends, but it's like an hour, and I tell my wife ahead of time and it's not a big deal. But again, if your family's suffering, your family's feeling neglected, you're distant from your spouse, it's time to move on. Okay, a third sign it's time to move on is constant physical symptoms. So you're like Jordan, you're sitting there in the car, your chest is tight, maybe you have digestive issues, chronic fatigue. Like, listen to that. Your body is trying to tell you something. Number 4, you've lost motivation. So if you dread going to work every day, you feel zero passion for what you do, it's definitely a red flag. And the last sign that you should quit your job and move on is you feel trapped. You only stay because you, quote unquote, need the paycheck, but you hate every minute of it. And guess what? You owe it to yourself to explore other options. All right, guys, we're in the home stretch here. And what I want to leave you with is how to start looking for a new job if that's what you've decided. So step 1, get clear on what you want. There are some really cool books out there. For example, check out From Paycheck to Purpose by Ken Coleman. This helps you define what some of your ideal working environments are, as well as what you actually want to do long term. Step 2, update your resume and LinkedIn. So highlight your strengths, key accomplishments, send your resume maybe to a friend and have them review it. Keep things concise and super easy to read. Step 3, tap into your network. This is where I would start doing what's called quiet networking. You don't need to announce to your job or anyone else, maybe besides family and close friends and close colleagues, that you're ready to move on. But start networking now and let people know that you're open to new opportunities. Step 4, so after you've dusted off the cobwebs and started networking, now it's time to start applying. But be selective. Do not apply to everything that comes into your LinkedIn notifications or whatever you're using. Focus on jobs that align with your values that you defined in the previous step. Another tip, if you have some time and energy, is to customize your applications and resumes for each specific job you apply to. Step 5, prepare for those interviews. Great, you got a call back. Now it's time to research common questions. Go look up stuff like the STAR method, S.T.A.Y. Practice confidently explaining why you're leaving without bad-mouthing your current job. And if you're in a technical job like myself, start practicing things like skills that you might get asked in an interview. Guys, anxiety at work does not have to run your life. You can manage it, reframe it, or if needed, transition out of it. I want to let you know we have the Anxious Father Workbook, and we have actionable, quick, concise 10-minute exercises to help you navigate workplace anxiety. We do a deep dive into identifying stressors at work for your specific job and exercises to help tackle specific triggers. We also cover the S.T.A.Y method worksheet to help keep you grounded. In the Anxious Father Workbook, we have actionable exercises to help you navigate workplace anxiety, including a deep dive into your specific stressors and triggers. We also cover the STOP method, and we have, in the Anxious Father Workbook, we have actionable exercises to help you navigate workplace anxiety. We cover deep diving into your specific stressors and triggers. We also cover the STOP method to help keep you grounded, and we include the step-by-step action plan to help you transition out of your current job. So if you're serious about taking control of your workplace anxiety, check it out. I'll drop the link in description. And I want you to know you do not have to do this alone. So if you're looking for support, I encourage you to check out the Legacy Father online community, and it's a place where dads just like you can connect, grow, and support each other. So if you're ready, grab a copy of the Anxious Father Workbook and join the community. Thanks for tuning in today to the Legacy Father podcast. If this episode helped you, please like, subscribe, and share it with another dad who might need it. Until next time, men, lead yourself, lead your family, and leave a legacy.